Hello, this is Josh George. Over here, this is me, Josh George, and today I'm going to do my final video. Since I'm at the ocean, it seems the perfect place to do where football teams consider their final destinations, the bowl games. I'll do the New Year's 6 pairings in this one, and what I think the final top 25 will be from the College Football Playoff Committee. We're going to start with the top 25, and we're going to go bottom to top like I always do. Coming in at 25th, I have the TCU Horned Frogs at an 8-4 season. Now, this was one of the hardest choices to make, putting in this last team. It could have been a ton of teams, and if you've watched my other videos, you can figure out who those teams are. But the reason I picked TCU is because Gary Patterson's defense. Gary Patterson always has a really good defense. And in the Big 12, you have to have good offense if you're going to get to 8 wins. And I figured when you look at all facets of TCU's game, they'll get the nod over some other teams. Now, in 24th, I have the Wisconsin Badgers, also at 8-4. I feel like the reason for that is the committee will see them as a battle-tested team, and it will give them the nod in the top 25. Then, at 23, I have Texas coming in at 9-3. I feel like Texas gets a lot of respect from the committee just in general, kind of being considered a blue blood, and I figured they'll see themselves at the final College Football Playoff top 25, sitting at 23. Then, coming in at 22, I have the Syracuse Orange. I have them at 9-3, and I feel like if they've won some big games, maybe upset at Clemson, that they'll deserve a final spot in the top 25, sitting at 22nd. Then, I have Fresno State at 10-3 at the 21 spot. The reason for that is that they play a very difficult non-conference, and if one of their only losses in conference is to Boise State, who you'll see later in my top 25, they'll earn a 21st spot in the rankings. Then, 20th, I have Kentucky. I have Kentucky 9-3. I think any 9-3 team in the SEC will find their way into the polls, and I have Kentucky at 20th. Then at 19th, I have Penn State. Penn State's one of those teams that's really good, but may have lost the ones that they shouldn't have, and a lot of people will say they should have been higher, but they may have lost to some teams that are higher up on the poll, like Michigan State, who I have at 18th. I have Michigan State also at 9-3, and I feel like they're going to have a really good season, and 18th is a really good spot for them to land. Then, at 17th, I have the Iowa Hawkeyes. The reason I have 8-5 Iowa here is because they won their division and played for a conference championship. That's how they get above some of these 9-3 teams, because the committee really respects not even winning, but playing for a conference title really means something to the committee. But the team that I had beating them head-to-head in the non-conference, Iowa State. I have Iowa State at 9-4, and they played for the Big 12 conference title. So, and a lot of people will say, why don't you have them higher? Because I feel like the Big 12 and Iowa State in particular, not a lot of respect from the committee just because they haven't been in the top 25 a whole lot. So that's why they're down at 16th. So then at 15th, I have Central Florida. I have them at 12-1, but a bad loss, like I said, to Stanford could really hurt their season and drop them in the polls. If you look bad in even one game, the committee will drop you way down. Then, at 14th, I have Army at 12-1, and if their one loss is to Michigan, then I think that they're going to get a lot of respect because they've beaten everyone on their schedule who they were supposed to beat. Then, at 13, I have the Miami Hurricanes at 9-4. Like I say, they played for a conference championship, and that will give them a lot of respect. And I think that's a good spot for Manny Diaz's first season. Then, at 12th, I have 10-3 Notre Dame. Notre Dame plays a very difficult schedule, and that's kind of how they get above some of these other teams and land 12th. Then, to the team I have coming in at 11, I have Boise State at 12-1, coming in at 11th. Like I say, if they play Florida State really close and that's their only Power 5 team, that's going to help them, but it's going to hurt them that it's their only Power 5 opponent. But they also have a win versus one of the committee's top 25, which lands them 11th. Then, coming in at 10, I have Utah, the Utes, the Pac-12 champion. And they don't have the best record. They're 10-3, but that's why they're not higher on the list, is the 3 losses. But I have them at 10th. I figured the Pac-12 champion will at least get into the top 10. Then, at 9, I have Florida Gators, 9-3, really good team, look good in all facets of the game, and they play a tough schedule in the SEC. Now, at 8, I have Ohio State. The reason I don't have them higher is because they're dealing with a first-year quarterback and a first-year head coach, and it's hard to bet on them. But 10-2 will land them in 8th spot, I believe. Then, at 7, I have Oregon. I figured this because they'll drop a little in the polls after losing a Pac-12 championship game, but at 11-2, I think a 7th ranking is perfect for them. Then, moving on to 6, I have the Georgia Bulldogs at 10-3. If they play Alabama close in the SEC title, I think it will look really good for the committee, and they may not drop them too far, so I have them coming in at 6th. At 5, LSU. I have the LSU Tigers. I think they play one of the hardest schedules in the entire country. That will weigh heavy on the committee's minds, and I think the committee will spot them at 5th. At 4th, I have the Clemson Tigers. I have them with only 1 loss, and that's to Syracuse, and it's kind of a fluke game. That will be good enough for a 4th spot. The reason I have Michigan at 3 is because there's so many ranked Big Ten teams on there, and it just shows you where Michigan's really at. Then at 2, I have the Oklahoma Sooners. If you run through your schedule like I have them doing and win your conference title, you should earn a really good spot. I have them at 2. Then at 1, we all should know by now, I have the undefeated Alabama Crimson Tide. Winning the SEC and going undefeated will get you the number 1 spot. Now, where are our seedings and pairings for the New Year's 6 Bowls? Well, we're going to start with the Rose Bowl. In the Rose Bowl, I have number 10, Utah, losing to the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think it could be a good matchup. A good offensive line for Ohio State and a great defensive line for Utah. Then in the Sugar Bowl, I have LSU facing Iowa State. I think it could be a really good game, but it may not be a stage that Iowa State is ready for. So I'm going to pick LSU in the Sugar Bowl. Plus, it's a home field advantage for LSU. Speaking of home field advantage, in the Orange Bowl, I have Miami facing Boise State. Boise State hasn't been to the big stage in a little while. A lot of these players haven't been in a New Year's 6 bowl game that are currently on the team. And home field advantage, I'm going to pick the Miami Hurricanes. Then in the Cotton Bowl, I have Georgia and Oregon. Georgia had a bad bowl game last season in a game a lot of people thought they should have won. I feel like this is kind of the same, but I'm going to pick them to win it this time because I feel like they've just got to do it for Kirby. So I have Georgia winning the bowl game. Then, to the playoff scenario. In the Peach Bowl, I have Alabama and Clemson. I have Clemson winning because a number 1 team has never won the college football playoff. So I'm putting Clemson in a national title game. Then, against Michigan and Oklahoma in the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, I'm going to pick Michigan. And here's the reason why. Oklahoma has not yet won a college football playoff game, and they've played in 3. Also, Jalen Hurts has never looked good in a college football playoff game in his career. So for those reasons, if you play bad, you're going to lose. So Michigan will win. And because it's so hard to repeat as national champions, I'm going to pick Michigan to beat Clemson in the national championship game. I am Josh George.